wanted to talk about something that I hear and see a lot as a common struggle or challenge with people that I've worked with in the past, with people, just people in my network. Those of you maybe in the audience who have commented on a couple videos before, if you're someone who's trying to build an audience, if you're trying to build a brand, if you're trying to monetize off of something, you're doing it all yourself, you're on your own, you're a solopreneur, you're kind of DIYing everything, this video is going to be for you, and I would encourage you to stick around and watch most of it, just because I want to have an open, honest, and constructively transparent conversation, specifically around how long it takes to find your sticking point. What do I mean by your sticking point? That's just like your thing, like your niche, your signature offering, the ideal platform for you, the kind of content that works for you. That stuff is really hard to figure out. That takes a long time to figure out. For me, it took a good year and a half maybe to figure out what people wanted from me. I want to say something, people want to hear something, and it's figuring out where that alignment happens. I don't know. Listen, I'm no scientist, so my understanding of this is very elementary. I don't know if you know how lightning works, but it basically happens when two signals from the top and bottom that meet, and then that's where that burst of lightning happens. That's kind of a similar comparison to figuring out your thing. I've worked with and had conversations with people who are a lot of coaches, consultants. They also might be marketers. They might be aspiring content creators, podcasters, all that stuff. And the common denominator with all of it is I just can't build an audience. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I want to make money off of this thing. I want to grow this thing. I want to build an audience. I want to do all this stuff. I want to build a brand. I want to have clients. And there is so much. And I apologize if I'm already repeating stuff that you already know, but take it as confirmation if you want. But there's just so much that has to happen simultaneously in order for that lightning strike to happen. But at least in the context of getting your audience, getting views, getting clicks, that whole thing, in the digital content age, it takes a long time to figure out what that is. I only recently figured out what that is for me, which is why I'm making this video, because it's so fresh in my mind. Just indulge me for a second. I want to kind of briefly offer my experience with this for context. I worked as a book marketer for an Inc. 5000 agency. I got that through a referral from a friend. A friend kind of referred me to it and brought me on. But all of my degrees, I don't know if you can see, my degrees are up there on the top shelf, are all in education. My bachelor's, my master's. I taught for 1 year, struggled with it, if I'm being honest. It was a tough year. So I decided, I don't think I want to do that anymore. Jumped ship to book marketing because I had a friend, who introduced me to that agency. And then I learned that I really liked it. And that sort of opened up the floodgates for me to book publishing and marketing. At the same time I was working at this company, I was pursuing my own books publication. It's called the Finer Things Club. It's about my experience working in Yellowstone National Park as a young adult. So that was kind of my first little lightning strike, I guess, if you will, about those two things matching up. That just totally lit my brain on fire, and I loved it because I got to do something that was a challenge that I got to make something with, and it exercised both sides of my brain. And I initially built my following on YouTube. It's a very niche following. You might know me as the book person still, but I pivoted at the start of December, I want to say. I went really deep into the things that I wish I knew more about when it came to book publishing and book marketing. Things I was learning on the job, I was making videos about. Things that I was learning from my own research, I was making videos about. And it was really cool because I created demand around that kind of thing because I was asking questions that I know a lot of other people were asking, doing the homework, doing the research, and making content about it, and giving people videos and, information on it. How to get a traditional book publishing deal, how to find the right editor, how to get on the New York Times bestseller list, and then also kind of capitalizing on things that were already in the news. That's a really good, quick, relatively easy way to use other people's content for your own, repurposing it in your own words so you're not plagiarizing, covering articles and blogs from the New Yorker, Literary Hub, the New York Times. One of my biggest videos on here is about bookshelf wealth. There's things, things that are kind of popular in book pop culture, I guess, if you will. So that got me my initial following. By posting a video every day, I grew my YouTube following from about 200 or 300 or so to about 1,000, a little over 1,000, I would say, within 1 year. And that was my biggest clue. You're kind of you're throwing a lot of stuff at the wall for a very long time until you figure out what people like and what sticks. And you not only have to be self-aware, which I'm going to talk about in a second, but before I lose my thought, you have to be self-aware and also take every granular little crumb of a clue and apply it to yourself. Because oftentimes you don't have much feedback to work off of. So you have to take tiniest little minutia of feedback from people, whether that's engagement, whether that's literal comments, whether that's no engagement, comments, or interaction at all. No feedback is still feedback. You have to take anything that you can get and kind of pivot it toward the thing that is still working. And you might not even know what that is because you're still throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. And that's a tricky place to be in, because you're trying to do better at this thing, but you don't know what to do better at because no one's telling you anything, which is where the self-awareness portion comes in, where you have to sort of constructively self-critique. What do I like talking about? What do people like hearing about? Why do I think those hooks were better? What was I doing that got people to stick around higher than usual at the 30-second mark? Because that's when a lot of the drop-offs happen on YouTube. For anything to count as a view long form on YouTube, it has to hit at least 30 seconds of their time watching it. What is it that I think would do well? What are things in the past that I took a risk on that didn't really pay off content-wise? And you just have to analyze every granular little thing you can highlight or indicate. So that's how I built my initial following on YouTube, a good 1,000 or so. I have about 1,400 right now. So that was my big clue that, oh, okay, there is definitely a need for this. But it wasn't immediate. It took a good year to realize that people liked the stuff that I was talking about. It's not like you make a few videos and then you go from there. I mean, it was months of consistent work to the best of my ability, talking about things that I think people liked and just hoping that it would pay off. So it was like months of consistently producing this stuff until I got the idea that, oh, okay, this is kind of starting to take off a little bit. I have more feedback and information and indicators that I can work off of. And then in December, I ended up kind of pivoting my focus a little bit. It's not that I changed completely or so drastically. It's more that I zoomed out my focus from books to be more inclusive of marketing in general, because I'm a nonfiction person. I've always been a nonfiction person. And the thing that I felt myself repeating a lot was that people who wrote books, whether fiction or nonfiction, but mostly fiction because that's what I spoke to, didn't realize that writing a book and becoming an author and working to get that published was a business endeavor, because you have something that you're trying to make, trying to sell, trying to promote, trying to get people to read and give money over for. You were making a product that you were hoping to sell, to put it to put it in terms of black and white. Whether you're launching a podcast, whether you're writing a book, whether you're starting a community, whether you're wanting to do more content creation or do streaming or whatever, it still stands. You have a thing that you're wanting to grow, whether in audience, whether in money, whether in attention, in any of those metrics. So when I pivoted from talking about books, because I didn't have those questions anymore, I already published my book, it just didn't light me up the way that it used to. If you want to watch that whole video that I made talking about that, feel free. When I pivoted from that to talking more about marketing and that wider perspective from a business lens, I kind of am still having to start that whole process over again. But the difference now is it's easier to do and faster to do because I have all of that previous prior knowledge. Now, again, I'm taking all these ideas and content and things that I think people would like, throwing it out there, seeing what resonates, and doubling down on what was, leaving the stuff that isn't working. And that can be tricky to do, especially if you've built an audience on one thing and now you're pivoting to another thing. You also have to think about a new factor that you didn't have before, which was, how's my current audience going to respond to this kind of thing? They came to me for books. They came to me for answers on publishing. I'm trying to take that same energy, but now put it more toward my marketing stuff. So how do you build demand around anything? Well, you have to create a reason for people to want to click on it in the first place. You're touching on either a pain point, a misconception, a preconceived notion, a contradiction, a first impression. There's all kinds of things that you can work off of to get people's attention. You're kind of hooking them. And at least on YouTube, people are mostly hooked by the title and the thumbnail. Those are the two things that will get the most immediate response. So the point with this is, when you're starting something new, if you're trying to build something, if you're wanting to create something from scratch, it's hard to do because you're starting from zero. I didn't have connections. I didn't have a huge budget. I had more time than money, so I used the time that I did have to put as much attention as I could afford to at the time into videos that I thought would make the most sense. I think I'm like 4, maybe 5 months into kind of pivoting my focus from books to marketing, and I'm just now starting to see a little bit of engagement. Now, I'm not too concerned with views. Views are a really nice vanity metric, but I'm not paying too much attention to that because, firstly, it's really discouraging when you put all all pour your heart and soul into a video that only gets like 10 views. But I have noticed that my retention, the length of time that people are watching my videos for has gradually started to kind of go up. So it tells me that there is an interest in this kind of thing. Views is a very flat number. Let's say a video gets 60 views in the first 2 or 3 days, let's say. I'm going to go back and check my analytics and see if that's above the average that my videos normally do. I might find that it's 10 views more than normal within that time frame. It's a small win. It's that tiny little crumb that I can go off of that tells me that there is an audience out there. There is for sure an audience out there for whatever it is that you're wanting to talk about. It's just getting that lightning bolt just right so it lights up. Them finding you, you finding them. And how do you do that? By a lot of trial and error, and you don't know how long you're gonna have to do that for. This is in the context of content creation, but it also applies to providing services. It also applies to building a community or testing out your different coaching services or testing out what you do at all, whether you are a coach or a freelancer or a contractor or a consultant or whatever. So it's just one of those problems that I don't hear many people talk about, I think because it's so particular. And the people who have made their millions and have their millions of followers, it's almost like you want to trust them a little bit less because they're so far from that beginner perspective that they can kind of miss some of the little details that go along with creating something from scratch. So I tried to catch myself as early as I could based on the small success that I was seeing on my stuff and apply it to this video. I don't have 1 million followers, but I'm a few hundred further than maybe I was a couple months ago. Whatever you do, be as consistent as you can afford to be with it. You're planting a lot of seeds, and depending on the seeds you're planting, if you're growing a tree and you stick a seed in the ground, it's gonna take a long time for that tree to become a tree. Versus a strawberry plant, it's not gonna take nearly as much time for a strawberry plant to bloom. So it depends on what seeds you're planting. If you're wanting to go for the gold and become a thought leader and go full-time with content creation and make a $500,000 in a year based off of your services, that's a big seed. So what do you have to do? Consistently water it, consistently fertilize it, make sure it's getting enough sunlight. And then one day, whenever that day is, you'll see a tiny little sprout coming, and that'll be enough for you to go off of until the next milestone. If you're the only person in the room with yourself, are you gonna stick around to watch? Are you gonna hold yourself accountable? That's probably my biggest piece of advice. Whatever you do, stick with it for as long as you can afford to stick with it before you start seeing those little sprouts come up. So this is meant to be more of an encouraging video of just give it time. It's not gonna take a month or two. It's gonna take, I don't know, depending on what you're doing, 6 months, a year, 2 years, I don't know. It varies for everyone, but take it from me. I'm not so far ahead, but I'm further ahead than I was certainly a year ago, certainly a month or two ago. So I hope you resonated with this. If you're into this kind of thing, you might want to consider joining my community. It's got a lot of cool stuff happening. I've got office hours, we've got live events happening, plenty of courses, outlines, checklists, quizzes, all that stuff happening to kind of get you set up, get around some like-minded people. Otherwise, if you're not ready for that kind of thing, feel free to subscribe if you're not already and subscribe to my newsletter. It's got very, very similar information on there as it is on here. So I hope you got something out of this, and I'll see you next time. Take care until then. Bye.